Hi, welcome back to our Add to Your Faith Studies Synoptic Gospels. Today we are looking number 66 on our chart. And you'll notice we are in a cafe today, so please excuse the music. I hope everyone can focus well. Number 66 on our chart is Jesus heals the Centurion's servant. This is in Matthew, Luke, and John. So turn to Matthew chapter 8. I have quite a bit of Bible reading today. We'll start in verse 5, I believe. Yes, verse 5. All right. When he entered Capernaum, a centurion came forward to him, appealing to him, "Lord, my servant is lying paralyzed at home, suffering terribly." And he said to him, "I will come and heal him." But the centurion replied, "Lord, I am not worthy to have you come under my roof, but only say the word, and my servant will be healed. For I too am a man under authority with soldiers under me, and I say to one, go, and he goes, and to another, come, and he comes, and to my servant, do this, and he does it." When Jesus heard this, he marveled, and said to those who followed him, "Truly I tell you, with no one in Israel have I found such faith. I tell you, many will come from east and west and recline at table with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in the kingdom of heaven, while the sons of the kingdom will be thrown into the outer darkness. In that place there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth." And to the centurion Jesus said, "Go, let it be done for you as you have believed." And the servant was healed at that very moment. All right, skip over to Luke. There is this story is not in Mark. So Luke chapter 7, verses 1 to 10. Okay. Feel free to eat, everyone who's here. Don't hold back. After he had finished all his sayings in the hearing of the people, he entered Capernaum. Now a centurion had a servant who was sick and at the point of death, who was highly valued by him. When the centurion heard about Jesus, he sent to him elders of the Jews, asking him to come and heal his servant. And when they came to Jesus, they pleaded with him earnestly, saying, "He is worthy to have you do this for him, for he loves our nation, and he is the one who built us our synagogue." And Jesus went with them. When he was not far from the house, the centurion sent friends, saying to him, "Lord, do not trouble yourself, for I am not worthy to have you come under my roof. Therefore I did not presume to come to you. But say the word, and let my servant be healed. For I too am a man set under authority with soldiers under me. And I say to one, go, and he goes, and to another, come, and he comes, and to my servant, do this, and he does it." When Jesus heard these things, he marveled at him, and turning to the crowd that followed him, said, "I tell you, not even in Israel have I found such faith." And when those who had been sent returned to the house, they found the servant well. All right, last one is over in John. John chapter 4, verses 43 to 54. John hasn't shown up a whole lot, so this is fun. John chapter 4, starting in verse 43. After the 2 days, he departed for Galilee, for Jesus himself had testified that a prophet has no honor in his hometown. So when he came to Galilee... Wait, am I the wrong one?
Yeah.
My bad. 43? No, that's right. Okay. Right chapter? Okay, this one's got a lot of different information. All right. Sorry. 45. So when he came to Galilee, the Galileans welcomed him, having seen all that he had done in Jerusalem at the feast, for they too had gone to the feast. So he came again to Cana in Galilee, where he had made the water wine. And at Capernaum there was an official whose son was ill. When this man heard that Jesus had come from Judea to Galilee, he sent to him and asked him to come down and heal his son, for he was at the point of death. So Jesus said to him, "Unless you see signs and wonders, you will not believe." The official said to him, "Sir, come down before my child dies." Jesus said to him, "Go, your son will live." The man believed the word that Jesus spoke to him and went on his way. As he was going down, his servants met him and told him that his son was recovering. So he asked them the hour when he began to get better, and they said to him, "Yesterday at the 7th hour the fever left him." The father knew that was the hour when Jesus had said to him, "Your son will live." He himself believed, and all of his household. This was now the second sign that Jesus did when he came from Judea to Galilee. Okay. I don't know that I agree with our chart that the John passage actually is the same story as the Matthew and Luke passage. Obviously, it's a very close story, but to me there's too many differences. between the Matthew and Luke passage to actually say the John story is exactly the same. Because in John, it is also an official, but it's his son, and the official himself comes to Jesus and then goes back and finds his son healed. But in the Matthew and Luke story, it's the official who sends servants to go speak to Jesus. First, he sends the Jewish leaders to speak to Jesus for him, and then when he gets near his house, he comes out with his friends to meet Jesus and to say, "Don't come into my house." Now, his faith and everything expressed is a little bit different than the John passage. So I just personally don't agree with that synoptic chart on that particular one. I think that's two different stories of people that were healed. But some would say that it's all the same story. So, I mean, I don't know. I can't prove that it's not, but to me the details are just a little bit different. So I think we have two different healings. I want to focus on the Matthew and Luke healing more than the John one today. So in Matthew and Luke, what we see in this story is this leader, this official who was a Gentile. He is not a Jew, but he has expressed support for the Jewish community and shown belief in God. That's why they said, "This man is worthy for you to heal him. He has built our synagogue." Okay, so this man had invested his money to build a synagogue for the Jewish people, even though he himself was not Jewish. Now, his request is that Jesus heals his servant from a distance. One of the reasons that he might have been saying to heal him from a distance would be that he was Gentile, and knowing that Jesus is Jewish, and the Jewish culture did not allow the Jews and Gentiles to come into each other's homes, that the Gentile home would be unclean to Jesus. So he knew and understood and respected the Jewish law. He wasn't like, "I am clean, come to my house." Like, he's not fighting it. He's just saying, "You don't have to come. I just need you to heal him." He expressed a respect of the law and a respect of the culture and didn't ask him to change those things. So that's an interesting note. But what Jesus took notice was that the centurion had a faith that he had not seen in the Jewish people. So that's why Jesus says that a faith like this I have not seen. Because he looked at Jesus and said, "If you'll just say it, it's done. So just say it." The Jewish people were looking for signs. They were looking for wonders. They were wanting Jesus to almost perform, is what it feels like a lot. And this man comes saying, "I believe you can do it. Please help me." He just comes with an open heart and complete faith, complete trust, and says, "Please do this." Now, I want to read again the part in Luke that, back to Luke 7, the ending. Look there at verse 6. "And Jesus went with them. When he was not far from the house, the centurion sent friends, saying to him, 'Lord, do not trouble yourself, for I am not worthy to have you come under my roof.'" So again, that expression of understanding the Jewish culture and how he could defile Jesus, make him unclean by him coming in. So that was what he meant by the unworthy. So then, I lost my place. Let's see. And he just says, "Speak." And so then Jesus hears him say, "If you'll just, I send my soldiers, and I say go and they go, and I say come and they come." What he understood was Jesus' power and authority. That, like, Jesus doesn't just have to be in a place to touch someone and heal them. Like, he has the power and authority to make a command, and it happens. So the centurion recognized Jesus' power in a way that many, again, the Jewish people had not recognized. So if you look over back at the Matthew passage, what number is that again? 8. There's an interesting part at the bottom. All right. When he said that, Jesus responded, there in verse 10, Jesus heard this, he marveled and said to those who followed him, "Truly I tell you, with no one in Israel have I found such faith. I tell you, many will come from east and west and recline at table with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in the kingdom of heaven, while the sons of the kingdom will be thrown into the outer darkness." Now, Jesus describes heaven. He describes what eternity looks like. That the table of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, this concept of the patriarchs, the founding fathers that the Old Testament is built around, that God used to establish the covenant, the law. When we look at the Jewish concept of eternity, it was to be in like fellowship with those patriarchs, to be at table with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, for everyone to be together for eternity. And so Jesus uses that image and says there will be people from east and west reclining at table with the Jewish leaders. That point that Christianity is not just for the Jews, that us, the Gentiles from east and west, will be at table with the leaders for eternity, like that it's not a separation. So one thing Jesus does is he answers what the centurion was saying, "I'm not worthy." And Jesus is saying, everyone's going to be in heaven together at the same table, east, west, and Jews together. So in that answer, Jesus removed that little spark of racism and separation that the centurion, he felt natural saying that. He truly felt unworthy for Jesus. And Jesus was saying no one is unworthy. Everyone will be at table together. But then he explains after that about what hell is like. So look at that part. Well, I just lost my place again. I think hold on. I'm having trouble with that. Here it is. So like at verse 11, reading that verse one more time. "I tell you, many will come from east and west and recline at table with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in the kingdom of heaven. While the sons of the kingdom," those are the Jewish people, all right, the covenant, "while the sons of the kingdom will be thrown into the outer darkness. In that place there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth." Now, every time hell, eternal damnation, and punishment is mentioned, is described with the weeping and the gnashing of teeth, right? So this is a clear description of hell. And he says that the sons of the kingdom will be thrown into hell, while people from east and west will be at the table with Jacob and Abraham. So when it says sons of the kingdom, that does not mean like followers of Christ. He's not saying that there's going to be Christians in hell. That is a confusing topic. The sons of the kingdom could sound like Christians, but it is not. What that means are the Jewish covenant by race people. That all Jewish people are under God's covenant to be his people. But if they reject God and they don't submit to Christ, they don't accept God's truth, then they will go to hell, even though they are sons of the kingdom. They are part of the original covenant. So racial being, your genetics, your family heritage does not get you into heaven. Only that personal relationship with Jesus. In today's words, people will say, "I'm a Christian because my parents are Christians, my grandparents are Christians," and they'll show family Christian identity as an excuse for why they are Christian. And this is saying that just because you're a son of the kingdom does not mean you go to heaven, right? Sons of the kingdom go to hell. It is people who have the faith of the centurion who will be at the table together, who understand who Jesus is, what his power is, and believe in him. So I love that in this moment, Jesus took an opportunity to teach all of us more than just healing the centurion's servant. He taught all of us about this racial tension, about this genetic confusion between Jews and Gentiles, on who is in the covenant and who is not. That it's by faith rather than by your humanity. And it is true, the Jews do have covenant. They are sons of the kingdom, but that does not make them escape hell. That gives them an opportunity to know God. Just like being born into a Christian family gives you an opportunity to know God. But it has to be a personal faith, personal relationship with Jesus Christ. And so that's what's really focused on here, that Jesus points out, which I think is just a really cool way that he uses this moment. And then he heals the servant. And I love that Jesus is having this dialogue. He's teaching the centurion. He's like, no, really, you are worthy because of your faith. And I see your faith, and I hear what you're saying, and I recognize you, not pushing you away because you're a Gentile. Now, again, why this is important. In Luke, the Jews came to Jesus and said, this man is worthy. He built our synagogue. To the Jewish people that came with Jesus, this man's good works made him worthy. He had done something good for the Jewish community, so they told Jesus he is worthy. But Jesus says nothing about, oh, you're right, he's worthy because of good deeds. No, because that's wrong. That's a misconception. He was not worthy because he built the synagogue. He was worthy because of his faith. So that's why Jesus focused on how much faith this man had, not how much money he had given to build the worship center, because that does nothing. And the Jewish people, again, they had a misconception about good works, giving them merit with Christ. And that happens so much today, is that people have that view that good works give us merit. If I give more money at church, if I give a better tithe, then God will hear my prayer. If I, do something amazing, like build a church building or donate something massive, then that somehow makes me more worthy. And that's exactly what happened here. The Jewish people thought this man's worthiness came through how much money he had given. But Jesus said, no, it's about how much faith he has. So just a really clear example of both who can be in heaven or hell. It can be Jew or Gentile, because he lists the Jewish people in heaven too, right? Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And then he lists the Gentiles, east to west. So those are all the people in heaven by faith, while sons of the kingdom, people who are following their parents or connected genetically, they can end up in hell. It doesn't matter about how much money someone's given or how much merit they've earned. It's about the faith in the individual. So there's so much in this passage. A lot of times we just talk about the healing. Jesus healed him, but it was so much more. Jesus always used every opportunity to teach, not just to do. So he did what was asked. He answered the man's request. He healed, while he also corrected all the bad theology around him. He corrected the Jews' theology about merit. He corrected the Gentiles' messed up theology about worthiness. He explained heaven and hell, and at the same time, he healed the centurion's servant. So there was so much that was going on in this that, it's pretty incredible. It's beautiful to see how Jesus took every opportunity for good. And, when he says to live with his mind, to have this mind in you, which was in Christ Jesus, that's also a part of our calling as Christians, is to live with a mindset to take every opportunity to help people understand the full truth of the gospel, the truth of who Christ is, to help correct misunderstandings while also dealing with their need. Like if someone's hungry and you give them food, you shouldn't just give them food. That's the need. That's the healing the servant. You also have to talk to them and help them come into that narrow way perspective of what is truth and what God wants us to understand. Sometimes we feel hesitant to correct people's theology or to bring them back into the light. We just want to fix the problem. Here, let me bring the healing. Let me bring the food. Let me bring the help. But Jesus showed us that when we do the thing that's helping, we also have to balance out everything else going on at the same time. And those are opportunities. So many times Scripture shows us that when we, give, and there's a cup of coffee, thank you, we give a glass of water, we give food to the hungry, we give help to anyone, that is giving it to Christ. That we do what we do as a love for Christ. It's not out of anything else. That's what he calls us to. That's why he says, when I was hungry, you fed me. When I was thirsty, you gave me something to drink. When I was naked, you clothed me. When I was in prison, you visited me. And the disciples said, what? We've not done any of that. And he said, when you do it to the least of these, my brethren, you do it unto me. When we do things to help people, we are helping out of our love for Jesus, and it's to him. And in those times of lovingly giving to Christ, we're supposed to use those opportunities also to help their hearts, their faith, their understanding at the same time. So I think it's a lot for us just to embrace just the truth and the gift that Christ gives us in that he never just does like a social gospel. He doesn't just help, but he helps and teaches and corrects and straightens up everything at the same time. And he can do that through us. Through the power of his Spirit, he can speak through us and work through us to help a need while also teaching and correcting everything around us in kindness and love. Nothing Jesus said here was condemning or negative. When the Jewish people said, he's worthy, Jesus didn't go, that's not right. But he corrected it. He taught them the truth. He showed them it was the faith by what he said, by his teaching. He didn't just slap them and say, that's stupid, don't say that. It was with gentle love and careful speaking that he explained, this man's faith is amazing. That's why he's going to heaven. So he made these true statements that taught so everyone could hear. And we can do the same. We don't have to just look at someone and say, what you believe is wrong. We can say, here's truth. This is what is beautiful. This is what is true. And Jesus is like celebrating. This man's faith is amazing, and he's going to be at table with the Israelites because that's how that works. With that joyful truth speaking, he corrects the problem. Sometimes in our attempt to correct problems, we're too negative or attacking or condemning, and that's not how Christ speaks. He speaks very clearly in this instance. Now, there were times that Jesus did speak harshly, like to the religious leaders who misused people. He called them snakes and vipers and dead bones, right? Like, it's not that he didn't call people out, but that wasn't always the method. Some people, some situations, we may need to be direct and say, that is wrong. In some situations, God gives us that freedom to gently guide people back into truth just through the way we speak about Christ, the way we rejoice in truth, the way we share God's blessing. So it's an interesting thing, I think, to help us have balance and joy in that. All right, let's cut this one off. If anyone has any questions out in video land, please feel free to send me a message, and we'll look forward to talking to you next week. Bye.